In 2003, one of our new clients coming on and that we were pitching was Royal Military College. And I remember going in to see Peter Daw, who was head of advancement and alumni relations at the time. He had just retired from the Canadian Armed Forces after 30 years of service, distinguished career, had been deployed around the world. And I walked into his office, and there on the wall was this beautiful photo of him and these four strong lads in their Canadian Armed Forces uniforms. And I said, Peter, who's that in the photo with you? And a big smile, he said, those are my four sons. And they were all serving Canada at the time. And it was amazing. So every time I would go back for meetings, updates, various events, he would always say, or begin to talk about his sons. And I remember around 2006, at one of those meetings, the conversation quickly turned to Matthew, who is his youngest. And he said that Matthew was stationed in Edmonton. He was preparing to be deployed overseas to Afghanistan. And I remember during that conversation, the interesting thing was, here was obviously a father talking about his son, and you could tell and feel the anxiety, but it was also a veteran, 30 plus years, as I mentioned, many hot spots around the world, many deployments, but he was anxious. And remember that conversation in 2006, and in 2007, in July of that year, I was in Calgary on business, and I got an early morning phone call from the office, and a colleague of mine said, turn on the news. And sure enough, on the national news, there was Peter and his wife. And I immediately knew something had happened to Matthew. And sure enough, a few days earlier, he, along with 5 others, including an Afghan interpreter, had been killed by a roadside bomb. So flew back to Toronto, made the drive to Kingston, and we're all of the age where we've been to our fair share of funerals, but to be at a funeral for a fallen soldier is very different. And coming off of that funeral and driving home, thinking about what the family was going through now, that there should be people like myself and many others who could do more to champion them, to rally around them and provide them more support. A couple weeks later, a good friend and I got together over drinks, like all good ideas come when you're having drinks. And we were talking about my experience and also his experience, having just met then our Chief of Defense, Rick Hillier. And Rick had established something called the Military Families Fund, which I would describe as sort of a rapid relief fund that was there particularly to help many of the families that were suffering as a result of our participation in Afghanistan. And we decided right then and there, with the help of many others that we recruited in, friends and other volunteers, that we would put on a dinner and we would raise $1 million for this fund. And if you fast forward about 15 to 17 months later, we hosted our first True Patriot Love Gala dinner. No expectation that this would be anything more beyond this one event, because we didn't know how good it was going to be, and quite frankly, we were kind of new to the space, so we didn't know what kind of legs this would have. And we actually, at the end of the night, didn't raise the $1 million we thought we would. We, in fact, raised $2.1 million. 1,800 people there, the Prime Minister of the day, the Premier of the day, captains of industry, other great community leaders, and many others. And I think 2 things came out of that event. One was we knew that this wasn't going to be one time, that this would be a lifetime commitment. And that the second is that if you give Canadians an opportunity to show their support, their gratitude, and their love, Canadians show up every single time.